Hello and welcome to Female Factor, which the Salam Project proudly presents. Today is your ultimate women empowerment webinar. We're joined by so many amazing panelists, and we're basically centering this talk and webinar around sharing our points of strength. I'm Unaisa Baker, your host today, and I will be doing some motivational speaking. And then we are joined by Aziza, who is our mindset coach. Aziza, give a wave, there we go. And followed by Shaheena, who is our business consultant. There's Shaheena. And finally, but last but not least, Sandra, our capacity builder. So this webinar is basically, it's obviously given the titles of each individual, it's very diverse, it's got loads of different things and mental tools as well as practical tools to build you up in a way that you're looking to be built up and giving you advice that you didn't actually know you needed. So I'm going to start right now. My name is Unaisa Baker, I'm 21 and I am a third year journalism student. The reason why I wanted to do some motivational speaking is because I believe that it's really important, all of us as women especially, we build each other up in a way that, well, society doesn't really do that because as we know, there are some holes, very big holes in society, and it's just really important that we understand how to fill in those gaps. So the first part of my part is going to be internal care, how to recognize the way you as an individual need to take care of yourself. So me personally, obviously, I am different from everybody else. I have a different way of taking care of myself, but the importance of making sure you identify how to take care of yourself internally rather than externally is massively important. So what are those ways? Firstly, you need to recognize where you need to fill in. We go through our days making sure that we're upholding our responsibilities, our duties, making sure we're fulfilling everything we need to be doing to make sure our lives run relatively smoothly. But why do we do that? Well, we do that because we need to make sure that we're leading a life that is worth our while. But I do believe a lot of us neglect what's going on inside. And the reason I think this is because we all in some way go about our lives kind of robotic, in a systematic way. It's the same thing every day, isn't it? We wake up, we have the same routine. You know, some of us go to school, some of us go to university, some of us go to work. And in that process, we kind of get lost. We get lost with just this, you know, A, B, C, D. Let me make it to B. Let me make it to C. Let me make it to D. But that's all externally. What's going on inside? Every single day, we take it in turns with battling a different emotion. Sometimes we wake up, especially as women, we all know, we go through rockets of emotion. So every day you're experiencing something different. Every day you're battling something else. Sometimes you're battling the same thing all in one go. In my podcast, which is titled Adjust Your Angle, the first episode I ever released was something called the You Day. And the way that this came about, I had no intention of making a podcast, but I was thinking to myself, how can I get out what I think I need to follow? You know, I like to give advice which I myself want to first and foremost follow. So I made this episode, I recorded this episode after having a really tough day at university, okay? I woke up, and you know those days where you're just like, no, I don't want to do this. I just can't, I no. So I had that day. Obviously, you can't just neglect all of your responsibilities. If you have children, if you have a husband, if you have a family, if you have rent, you know, you can't just neglect these things. That's not what I'm saying. But in this episode, what I specified on and what I kind of focused on was recognizing when you internally and you just need to take a break, you need to stop. Not necessarily go and fly out and go to a holiday, but just literally, even if it means you sitting in bed with a cup of tea and just staring outside of your window and just enjoying being in the moment. And through that, when I did that, I just decided, I messaged my teacher and I was like, listen, I'm gonna work from home today. That's what I'm doing. They were like, cool, no problem. So what I did that day, okay, I took my day so slowly. And this is my advice to you, okay? Taking care of your internal being. When you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed, if you can keep up with this generally every single day, that's great. But unfortunately, humans are not people or beings of moderation. We're just not. So anyway, if you can keep up with this living in the moment every single day, that's amazing. That's the end goal. But where do we start? You need to wake up every day and imagine it. It's a bit morbid, but imagine it's all you have. Yeah, imagine you have a meal and it's the best meal. It's your favorite ultimate meal. How are you going to savor that? How are you going to make sure you have this little piece of lamb slowly and really enjoy how it's been marinated and think about the love that was put into this dish? That goes for your day-to-day life as well. Wake up. Be like, right, what's today, you know, the day of the week, what's the weather like, and don't let your emotions lead your day. You know, mind over matter. You can't, we are, as women, we are creatures of heart. We do lead a lot of our lives through our hearts. You know, we think first with our hearts, minds kind of follow afterwards, which it's not a bad thing, not at all. But sometimes you do need to make sure that you are understanding that at times your heart is not strong enough or able to, you know, take lead. So anyway, wake up, think, this is all I have today. What do I want to do to make sure I feel fulfilled? And each of us individually has got a different way of making sure we feel fulfilled. Me personally, I like to knit, I like to read, I like to just sit there, be like, wow, great life, nature. You know, we all have different ways. You could be really productive, you could be really not productive. So each of your own ways of taking it really slow, automatically, you're all doing something very similar. And what you're doing is you're living in the moment. And when I tell you living in the moment is such an important part of internal care, it's ridiculous how amazing it is. It links, because when you take everything at a time, you really appreciate not only things about your life, but about yourself. You're like, wow, that's me. You start to get to know yourself. And internal care is very centered around knowing who you are. And a lot of us don't know who we are. We don't know what makes me happy, what makes me sad, what makes me feel motivated, what inspires me. And especially when you are in a family or in a relationship, or just generally really involved in something in your life, could be work, could be anything, you kind of blur yourself into that thing you focus on, which can be quite dangerous because you lose yourself. So internal care, living in the moment, that's the first part. And how do you live in the moment? You take one day at a time. And how do you take one day at a time? You take 1 minute at a time. Then you take 1 hour at a time. Then you take a few hours at a time. Then you take 1 day at a time. Then you take 1 week at a time. And it's a cycle. So I personally don't recommend you take a month at a time. It just didn't work for me. Taking a week at a time was great. It worked. So if you find yourself, the way to catch yourself in the act of realizing you're getting stressed out, if you start planning, you can have a plan, you know, a diary where you're like, these events are happening in this month. But if you start stressing about how your month is going to go, you need to go all the way back. Take that minute at a time. Take those few minutes at a time. Take that hour at a time. So you need to rewind. It's just a cycle. Internal care is a cycle, a beautiful one, and you've got to keep doing it because you deserve it. The second thing is something I like to call being your own knight. So I'm interested to know what comes to everyone's minds when you think, what does being your own knight in shining armor mean? Me personally, it means me being responsible for my own actions, for how I feel, how I make myself feel, my train of thought. And unfortunately, our society actually teaches us to depend on external factors. We depend on someone to make us feel better. We depend on a lifestyle to make us feel better. We depend on an environment to make us feel better. But when we depend on something other than ourselves to make ourselves feel better, we're actually setting ourselves up for a very big risk, because who knows you better than yourself? If you depend on a person to take care of you, to make sure that you're okay 24/7, how do you know that person's got that capability? How do you know that lifestyle is always going to be the same way? How do you know you're going to be, you know, earning that certain amount of money each time? How do you know that environment is always going to make you feel that way? So when you depend on external elements to make yourself feel better, you are not being your own knight in shining armor. You're basically, in a weird way, copying those Disney films of Cinderella finding a man or Sleeping Beauty finding external. The society teaches us to depend on external things to make ourselves feel safe. Being your own knight in shining armor, the concept, right, which is taught to young girls all the time, is right, that prince over there, what does he offer you? Ultimately, what does he offer? He offers you security, safety. You feel good, right? You feel safe. That's wrong, because you're teaching your young women to depend on something external to make them feel safe. In fact, they can have that shield internally. And how do you have that shield internally? How do you make sure your heart has got some sort of, you know, casing around it to ensure that it's not just getting hit 24/7? Well, you pay attention. You pay attention to what makes you feel bad or sad or angry or upset. And each time an emotion, and a negative emotion is felt, you have to take it apart and you have to really analyze it, right? That didn't feel good. Why? And we are beings of knee-jerk reactions. We feel sad. I'm angry. I'm going to tell you with my voice. You feel sad. I'm going to cut my eye. That's a knee-jerk reaction to respond that way. But I really believe in something called the pause. The pause right? It's really hard, I won't lie. The pause is when something makes you feel a particular way and you've got to go, just that's all it is. Just go, what was that? Why did that make me feel that way? What was that? Why, what in me can't respond well? I'm just going to say this, and I know we don't do that. None of us do that. We don't go, okay, that didn't feel good. We just respond, okay? We are like that. We are creatures of heart. So a way to practice the pause is think about your future self. There are two versions of you. One, the one who responded angrily, right? Like, what? Excuse me? And it started from there, and where it ended, God knows. The second one is, right, so I don't really like how you responded to me. And the reason why, that one, right, the conversation becomes calmer and calmer and calmer, which is great because, everybody's happy. The way to do that and practice the pause is you need to remind yourself, you deserve to respond in the best way possible because you deserve the best outcome. It's as simple as that. So next time something happens and you're like, oh my goodness, excuse me, and you get angry or sad or emotional, pause, because you deserve, in that situation that upset you, you deserve to have the best outcome in that situation. That's how you practice the pause. And I'm not saying this as though I am an expert. I'm really not, but it's practical steps to making sure you're able to do that sort of thing. Being your own knight means making sure you're setting yourself up to feeling safe. And I have this concept where, you're supposed to build your home, of course, in society and in life. You're supposed to you want to build a home, a family, you want a nest to feel safe in. But how do you determine the type of nest you're setting yourself up to build externally and in a practical way? You have to look inside. How is your nest inside? When you do that, you're able to actually think about, what am I bringing to, for example, a relationship or becoming a mother or anything? What you can determine what you're bringing to the table when you look at your internal nest. And we need to make sure our internal nest always has a lovely fire burning. There's nice pies on the table, a warm bed. We need to make sure our internal, our heart is happy and our heart is able to create that. It has the facilities to create that really lovely cottage in the middle of a beautiful meadow with a stream nearby. We're hearing it. But how do you do that? It's hard. It's really hard. It's not easy. You've got to make sure you cut that wood, firstly. You cut that wood from the trees, right? It's not wet, it's dry, it's good. Yeah, you need to make sure you build that house brick by brick. You need to make sure you learn how to cook those beautiful pies. You know how to keep your bed warm. And these are all obviously metaphors, but I'm using them because in our mind, I want you to imagine that is what your internal nest looks like. You feeling safe inside yourself is so important. The world is unpredictable. You wake up every day and you're not sure what it's going to bring you. You don't know the sort of day. There is a day that is for you and there is a day that is against you. Okay? That's the saying. There's a day that is for you and there is a day that is against you. What you want to prepare for is being ready for both of them. Sometimes wisdom and every single day, whether it's for or against you, everything has an element of blessing, an element of wisdom, an element of, you're learning something, okay? But at the same time, you want to make sure that you have a graceful attitude towards no matter what the day brings you. And you do that through internal strength. So you need to make sure that you take care of yourself internally, because no one else, your heart is your responsibility. I like to say your heart is your responsibility, and you need to make sure that you know that, because if you don't, you're at risk of someone else claiming responsibility of your heart. And when someone has responsibility of your heart, that's very, very dangerous, because, well, it's dangerous. You're the owner, you're responsible, and you need to make sure you're nurturing and taking care of it. Just imagine it as something you're holding in your hand, maybe like a glass, and it gets a bit murky inside, it's a bit dirty, clean it, scrub it, And the point in being your own knight, I want to make, to end on this final point, is you need to make sure that you understand, at the end of the day, no matter what sort of internal care, what aspect it is, whether or not it's being your own knight, whether or not it's making sure you're, taking care of your mental health, etc., just always remind yourself, why am I doing this? Like, why am I making so much effort to ensure that I'm okay? Because you deserve to be. You deserve to be. That's it. It's as simple as that. Why do I deserve to be? You just do. There is not a human being on earth that does not deserve to be taking care of themselves or being taken care of by the others. Your family in a way take care of you as well. There's not a human being in the world who doesn't deserve it. And when someone tries to convince you that you're not worthy of it, that person needs to go. Gone. By the door. That's it. It's as simple as that, okay? Because you're worthy, and you're always going to be worthy, whether or not you feel it. Okay, moving on. We've done how to take care of your internal state. We've done how to be your own knight. You know, I'm not cussing Disney's, but I'm just saying that's the wrong concept. Do not depend on an external element to make your internal state feel safe. Depend on internal, and it becomes a beautiful cycle, okay? Next, hearts and health. Why it's so important to take care of your heart. Why it's so important to make sure that your heart is in its best state, okay? The reason is because it does have external factors. We've spoken a lot about the internal state. We've spoken a lot about the reason why being internally happy and safe and serene is so important, because it has such a massive impact on our, external state. And what I mean by that is, I'm sure you've all noticed when you are not happy, or you're a bit depressed, or something negative is going on the inside, you start to think, for example, you don't look good. You start to realize your life is not going exceptionally well. Maybe what the negativity inside just brings, the negative aspects outside to your attention, but irrespectively, there is scientific proof that how you feel inside does affect what goes on, because your attitude changes, your insights change, your perspective changes, everything changes in a way. So if you don't want to take the effort to ensure that you're taking care of the internal aspect of yourself, the internal side, your external life, if you think I can just neglect the inside and yet the outside is more important, they go hand in hand, they coincide, they are literally hand in hand. And it's so important that we know that it does begin on the inside. That is true. It does begin inside and it goes out. It doesn't start from external. Money doesn't make you happy. I don't want any debate about that. Money doesn't make you happy. The external life doesn't make you happy. It's the internal that flourishes out. What does a seed do? A seed, what does it do when it's growing? It is planted, and then it has roots that go amazingly, spreads around it. It creates a foundation for itself before growing. Did you notice that? A seed creates a safe haven for itself before being like, okay, I'm ready to flourish. Same with us. Before you get into a relationship, before you become a mother, before you commit to something that's going to take a lot of your time, how on earth do you know you're going to be able to support yourself internally and keep going? You don't. You have to make sure you've built really good roots in the ground to keep you safe, like the seed. And the seed doesn't depend on another seed to do that. It's on its own. It's every man for himself. He becomes his own flower. Same with a tree. He becomes his own tree. So plant your roots like a seed. Then what happens? The seed becomes a bit bigger. It's getting, nurtured, and it's getting its water. It's getting its sunlight. It's getting everything it needs. But what happens before it becomes even a stem before a flower, let alone a flower? It breaks. It breaks, and that hurts. Same way with us. Growth is painful, and pain, unfortunately or fortunately, is one of the best teachers. Anything happening in your life that is really hurting you, upsetting you, causing stress and strain on yourself inside, I'm not going to say everything's, it's okay for that to happen. I'm not going to say, don't worry. It's true in a way, don't worry about it, because no matter what happens, the end tunnel is always brighter. The seed is in the ground and it can't see anything. The seed is surrounded by dirt, but it always has faith it's going to persevere and shoot up through that mud. So the seed breaks, it hurts, but then it starts another foundation, which is its stem, and it starts growing and growing and growing. And the more the stem grows, the wider and larger the roots become. So that doesn't mean once you've done, you don't just do the work and you set the foundation for yourself. You're ready to jump into this job that is a lot strenuous. You're ready to jump into this marriage or relationship that is, a lot. It's going to take a lot. Motherhood. It doesn't mean you stop doing the internal work. You have to keep doing it, because as the stem shoots up, its roots become wider and stronger and deeper. Same with a tree. And then the end result with a tree or a plant is a flower or fruit, right? And the quality of this flower or fruit, let's use the example of the fruit. The quality of this fruit heavily depended on how it started, how deep its roots went, how strong its stem became. Some trees produce fruit that is never sweet, it's always bitter. Some trees are relatively small and they don't last as long as oak trees, for goodness sake. They last for years and years and years. That's how we want to become. Even when it's our time to go, we need to make sure that we are going to leave a legacy behind, okay? So I know I'm using a lot of metaphors and stuff like that, but It's really important that we understand this, okay? Right, so hearts and health, why it's so important to take care of our internal state, okay? And next, the soul and society. Personally, I don't like society. We're not friends, because it sets things that are not good for us. It doesn't support us necessarily, and unfortunately, people other than ourselves dictate and decide how far your aspirations should go, how big you should dream, who you think you can become. Society squashes a lot of that. So how do we make sure we battle that? We need to make sure, again, we have the ability to keep, fighting and battling it. You can be whoever you want to be. You can become whoever you want to become. Your aspirations and inspiration can be as big as you want it to be, okay? That's on you. So don't depend, again, it's back to the external element. Don't depend on society, an external element, to decide who you are going to become, okay? Some things seem impossible. People have achieved crazy things who didn't necessarily have it. People didn't think they had it in them. Muhammad Ali, for example. Do I have to say anything else? Where did he start and where did he end? That's a prime example. Where you end up does not necessarily depend on where you began. Externally, it depends on what you built up inside of yourself. Anything you give out in this life, anything that comes your way, or anything you invest in, depends on what you have inside yourself, okay? That really heavily depends. I just think the reason why I personally wanted to talk so much about what goes on inside and how we need to make sure we take responsibility is because I do think, especially females, women, young women, and girls, they're not taught this. We're taught, you'll find that person, just you'll become a housemaid, or you'll become someone who just works in the kitchen, or is going to become a mother and just invest. That's fine, but you're just kind of being told that you are born for something else. You're born to take care of something else other than you, which is not true. You're not. You are born to be responsible for you, okay? You are born to be responsible for making sure you're safe in yourself. You feel safe in yourself. You feel secure in yourself. You feel able in yourself. You feel motivated in yourself. You feel happy in yourself. And this is a constant battle. You're always going to be feeling, different things. You're going to be battling. Sometimes you'll feel amazing. Sometimes you won't. And you have to always be, again, I started this with, human beings are not beings in moderation. Moderation is maturity, being able to be very zen and moderate and have the appropriate response to absolutely everything. That's near to impossible. That's not what we're aiming for. We don't aim for ultimate perfection, because we are not beings of perfection. We're not perfect. We aim for the best version of ourselves, being the best version of ourselves. And you decide what the best version of yourself is. Don't think of yourself in 5-10 years and think, okay, that's me. That's who I want to be. I'm not her now. I'm going to beat myself up until I get there. Nobody ever learned how to love themselves through beating themselves up. No one has ever done that. Who you see in the mirror, your reflection, it depends on the eyes that are looking at it. They're your eyes. They're nobody else's eyes. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You are beholding your own beauty before someone else says. So if you need someone else to say you're beautiful and you believe it, that means you are not in control of what's going on internally. That means you're not in control of, understanding, who you are as a person. Beauty cannot be defined as one thing. It's a concept in some ways. Beauty is simply, literally, I think, and my opinion is as relevant as you make it, beauty is literally a person striving to be the best they can ever be, and depending on themselves to do that. We're allowed to depend on other people to boost us up. We're allowed to, sometimes need a hand to, someone to hold your hand. We do need that. But at the same time, you have to hold your own self, your own hand first before you can hold someone else. You have to be able to understand that you are responsible, you are able. And before accepting and acknowledging that you're responsible, you have to be convinced that you are able, and you are able, because you wouldn't be here if you weren't. Every single one of us, everyone listening to this talk, everyone who's going to be listening to it in the future, hopefully, everyone who, even the panelists, we're all here today because we have some source of strength we found in ourselves that we believe you're all worthy of hearing and being able to use. And that's why we're here today, because none of us here are perfect. We all fail, we all fall, and when you do fall, the only thing you need to do is, get back up. It's great to fall. It doesn't feel good. It hurts, but it's exciting because it means, right, I need to get up now. I need to start moving forward. And one really beautiful thing about it. What does a muscle do when it rips? Some of you who work out, hopefully you all do in some way. When we build muscle, right, we all know when we've gone and done some really vigorous workout, the next day it really hurts to move. Like, it hurts, right? It really hurts. And I didn't really know why until I was a bit older. And the reason why is because your muscle rips. It rips and then it rebuilds itself. It rips and then rebuilds itself. And in rebuilding itself, it becomes stronger and it actually lasts longer. It becomes so robust that it kind of takes a lot of effort for it to be lost. If you just suddenly stop working out for a good few months or weeks, depending on how long you've been doing it, that's when the muscle deteriorates. That's what we're doing. We're building a muscle forever, always, because we build the muscle and then it goes away. Then we build the muscle again, then it goes away. Sometimes we build the muscle so well that we can keep going for a little while. We're so motivated to keep building that muscle. We don't really need to make as much effort, but then sometimes we just completely stop. We don't want to do any more work and we're like, I can't be bothered. That muscle that you took time in building is a thing that will allow you to keep going for a little bit longer. And then you hit a bit of a rock bottom and you're like, right, I need to put in some effort. So again, everything I've spoken about and mentioned, whether it was internal care, being your own knight, hearts and health, and soul and society, it's all to do with a cycle of life going over and over and over again. And that's all we're doing. But we are the cycle of life, just like animals, just like plants, insects, everything. And it's really beautiful because you can actually look at your own self through these different creations. You can look at natural instinct, you can look at the appreciation of life. Some insects and some some things don't live that long. I actually watched something where there's a certain insect and it takes so much time in it hibernates in a way. It takes so much time building itself, and then it only lives for a day. And it enjoys its time. It goes out with its other organisms and it flies around for a good day, and then it passes away and it passes on its seed to something else. And then the cycle of life, we all have different durations, we all have different time scales, we all have different amounts of time we are here on the planet. But it's how we spend our time that counts, not how long you have. We look at this world and we go, wow, he lived till 90 years old, he's lucky, that's amazing. And we look at someone who lived till 70 and we're like, oh, that sucks. It would have been nice if he lived up to 90. But that 90-year-old could have spent 50 years of his life not adding to himself and not investing in himself and not taking time to make sure he's becoming the best version of himself. Whilst a 70-year-old, every single day he made count because he was living in the moment. He was savoring everything he had. He was savoring each second he looked at something. And we all need to make sure we're doing that. It's not about the quantity in life, it's more of the quality that we have. Okay, so I'm going to draw to an end, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed listening. And if you have any questions, please make sure you put them in the chat. We have an amazing next speaker. Her name is Aziza, and she is going to be speaking to you about mindset coaching.